All right, this is a chapter 3 review to give you just a quick overview of what chapter 3 is about. In section 3.1, make sure that you can take a verbal expression and change it to an algebraic equation. For example, if you have the sum of 2 times a number in 7 is 10, you know the sum means addition. So you are adding the next two things that you have. You have 2 times a number and you have 7. So 2 times a number plus 7 is 10. Doesn't ask you for the number, so you don't have to solve it. You just have to come up with the equation. A hint to remember is when you see the word less than, the number behind it always goes first. So if you see 10 less than a number is 45, this part goes at the beginning. So a number, we'll let it be n, minus 10 is 45. So that's section 3.1. Section 3.2, you started solving equations by adding or subtracting, or looking at it as adding a negative to get rid of a number or move it to the other side. So for instance, on this one, the very first thing that I would do is I would add the opposite of the second number. So you have r plus a negative 21 equals negative 37. So I'm going to add positive 21 to both sides to get rid of it. So it's going to give me r on the left side is equal to, it would be 16 on the right hand side, and it would be negative 16 because your larger number is negative. To check these, remember you can plug them back into your equation where your variable is. So you have negative 16 plus negative 21 equals negative 37. So that is true. Negative 37 equals negative 37. So I know for sure that negative 16 works. Now on the test, I'm not going to necessarily make you check them, but if you want to take the time to check them, you can verify whether you've got them right or wrong, and you would definitely increase your score. On this, my first move, I would switch sides of the equation due to symmetric property because I want my variable on the left-hand side. So you can see that I need to get rid of this 6, so I'm going to add a negative 6 to both sides. That is equal to 0, so what's left on the left-hand side is p. I want to bring my equals straight down, and 27 plus a negative 6 is positive 21. All right, you have d minus a negative 1.2 equals a negative 7.3, so I'm going to add the opposite of the second number. So I now have d plus 1.2, so I want to add a negative 1.2 to both sides. So I have d equals negative 8.5. And again, if you want to check them, you just plug them back into the equation. That was section 3.2. Section 3.3 has to do with solving equations by multiplying or dividing. Remember, the opposite of multiplication is division. The opposite of division is multiplication. So if I have 6 times x, the way that I get rid of that 6 is I divide by 6. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. 6 divided by 6 is 1. So what I have left on the left-hand side is x. What I have left on the right-hand side is negative 7. Here, I have 5 over 2 times a. So I can divide both sides by 5 over 2. Or another way of doing that, and it's harder to show it on this side if you will, but the 5 over 2 and divided by 5 over 2 is going to leave me with an a. And on this side, I have 25 over 1, and I'm going to invert and multiply, so I get 2 over 5, which is going to give me negative 50 over 5, which is equal to negative 10. Okay. Essentially what you're doing when you have a fraction like that is you're multiplying it by its reciprocal. So you notice, actually, I did flip it. So I have 2 over 5 then I'm going to multiply it by, because that's the same thing as dividing it by 2/5, or 5/2. So this one, technically, I'm going to divide it by 3/4, but mathematically, I'm going to multiply it by 4/3. That's the same thing as dividing by 3/4. So on this side, what I have left is n. On this side, what I'll have left is 120 over 3, because this is over 1. And when I divide that, I'm going to get a 40. Section 3.5 has to do with solving multi-step equations. So you might have to do more than one thing in a problem to solve it. First thing I'm going to do here is add the opposite of the second number. So I'm going to add a positive 7. It's the farthest away from the p. What I do to one side, I do to the other side. Do not divide by 4 first. You have to get rid of that 7 first. So I have 4p is equal to 12. Now I'm going to divide by the 4. And I'm going to get p equals 3. And again, to check it, all I would have to do is plug it back in for the p at the beginning. This one, your 6 is farther away, so I'm going to add a -6 to both sides. That goes away, so I have y over 3 is equal to -51. Now I'm going to multiply both sides by 3 because the 3 is divided. Opposite of division is multiplication. 3 over 3 is 1. So on the left-hand side, I have y. On the right-hand side, I have a -48. This one is different. If you look at it as this is like a bunk bed and this is somebody in the room with you in a single bed, they're still in the same room. Versus if I have a fraction bar all the way across, this is like upstairs and downstairs. So the 7 is farther away from the D. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the 7 by multiplying both sides by 7. I can't do anything with any of this until I get rid of this one so I can get to that. So I'm going to mark that out. That's equal to 1. I have 4D plus 5 on the left-hand side, and I have 49 on the right-hand side. Now, it's almost like I've started a brand new problem. The 5 is the farther away number from the D, so I'm going to add a -5 to both sides. So I have 4D is equal to 44. I have to divide by the 4, and I find out that D is equal to 11. A step-by-step process, but there is a certain order by which it has to be done. Then you moved on to a section that had to do with solving equations with variables on each side. So the variables have to be put together. So I'm thinking about my plan of attack. I'm going to have to originally, well, I'm going to actually, first thing I'm going to do is I'll add the opposites here. And then I'm thinking about, I've got to get the stuff with the n over here on the left-hand side and the stuff without the n over to the right-hand side. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a +2 to both sides. That cancels out, so I have n is equal to 6 plus a -2n. I'm going to add a +2n to both sides, which is going to give me 3n, because there's an understood 1 in front of that, equals 6. Then I'm going to divide by 3, and I'm going to get n is equal to 2. On this one, I have to do distributive property first. Here and here. But I will add the opposite, the second number. So I have 2b plus -6 is equal to 3b plus -3. I'm going to add 6 to both sides. Now, obviously, I can't add it to the 3b because I can't connect something with a b with something without a b. So I have 2b is equal to 3b plus 3. I need to add a -3b to both sides. And I get a -b equals 3. I got to get rid of the negative, so I'm going to divide by -1. What I do to one side, I have to do to both sides, and I'm going to get a -3. You also had a section on ratios and proportions. Part of the problems here, you just had to solve for an unknown. If two ratios are set equal to each other, and that's true, then they are called a proportion. A ratio is somewhat of a fraction comparing two different things together. If I have an unknown here, and I have two equals, I have an equal and I have two fractions on each side of it, I can do something that's called cross product. So I'm going to put the variable on the left-hand side. So I have 15n on the left-hand side. And let's see, that's going to be 270 on the right-hand side. I'm going to divide both sides by 15. And I'm going to get n is equal to, let's see, 270 divided by 15. It's going to come out even at 18. All right. Then you have word problems about this that has to do with scale drawings. You're going to set up your scale so you figure out which one goes on the top and the bottom, because you're going to ultimately set up a proportion problem. A collector's model race car is scaled so that 1 inch on the model is equal to 6.25 feet on the actual car. So you have model, which is in inches, over, and this is my choice to put the model on the top, which is, I guess I should have switched those. The actual is in feet. So I have 1 inch is equal to 6.25 feet. And then it tells me if the model is 2/3 inches high, which is going to put the 2/3 is going to be on the top, then how much is it going to be in actual? So I'm going to go 1 times x, which is x, and then I'm going to go 6.25 times 2, and I'm going to divide that by 3, because I'm going to take this over 1, multiply it by 2/3, and it's going to give me 4.16 with a line over it. And that would have to be in feet. So if I have 2/3 of an inch on the actual, on the model, it's going to be equal to 4.16 feet on the actual car. So you have to be able to set up some scale drawings like that. Then we did a section on percent of change, which was section 3.7. Remember, it's always change or difference divided by the original. So if the original is 40 and the new is 32, the difference or the change in that is 8. Notice it goes from 40 to 32, so it's a percent of decrease. It goes down. If it went up, we would call it a percent of increase. So I have 8, which is the difference, over 40, which is the original. Now you can always reduce it down if you want to, but ultimately what you're doing is you're dividing the bottom into the top. It goes 0.2 times. But this is a decimal. I need to change it to a percent, so I'm going to move it 2 places to the right. So what I have is I have a 20% rate of decrease. Make sure you remember it's change or difference divided by the original. Then we had on the same section, we had sales tax and discount problems. Now, if we have a sales tax, we have to change this to a decimal value to be able to do math on it. So we want to find the tax by going $42.56 times decimal 07. And on the test, on this section, you will be able to use a calculator. But just on this section, actually it's the percent of change forward. So this is going to round to $2 $42.98. Remember, it's money, so you can only have two places after the decimal. Now this is a tax, so of course that gets added back to the original price, because the tax is going to make me have to pay more for something than what the price tag showed me. So I have $42.56 plus $2.98. So this item that costs $42.50 with a tax is going to cost me $45.54. The discount is done similar, except for it's going to subtract from the price instead of adding like with the tax. We had to do that. So we had $58.30. Again, you have to change it to a decimal. So I'm moving the decimal two places to the left. So I'm multiplying it by decimal 20. And I'm going to get $11.66. That's my discount. So I have $58.30 minus $11.66. And I'm going to get $46.64. That's how much I'm going to pay. It's on sale. It's discounted, 20% off. Now, if you have to do both a discount and tax, make sure you get the discounted price before you figure out the tax. The tax is based on the discounted price. Okay, then you had a section that had to do with solving equations for formulas or for just variables. Like for instance, I have all variables in here and I want to solve for y. So I'm going to add the opposite of the second number. I'm going to add a positive b to both sides. So I have ay is equal to c plus b. Then I have to divide by a to get rid of it. And I'm left with y on the left-hand side and c plus b divided by a on the right-hand side, because I was solving for y. Over here, I also want to solve for y. I have two fractions that are divided by an equal sign. So I'm literally going to do cross product just like I was doing with proportions and ratios. But remember here, you are going to have to do distributive property. And here, you're going to have to do distributive property. Now I am trying to solve for the y. So I'm going to go ahead and do this distributive property. I will add a positive 4a to both sides. So I have 8y is equal to 7a plus 9b. I'm going to divide by 8. And I'm going to get y equals 7a plus 9b over 8. All right, then it brings us to the last section. This was a weighted average section. This is the part that you make your tables. You have items. You have amount. You have cost. And you have total cost. So, suppose the Central Park Coffee Shop sells cups of espresso for $2. So you have espresso, and it costs $2. And a cup of cappuccino for $2.50. So you have cappuccino, and it costs $2.50. And on Friday, Destiny sold 30 more cups of cappuccino than espresso. So we'll let espresso be E, and this will be 30 plus E. Okay, 30 more cups of cappuccino than the total amount of espresso. And they totaled $178.50 when they figured the amount of espresso and the amount of cappuccino. Okay, so we didn't have to do anything over here. But remember, to get this one, I multiply this times this, so 2e, and I'm going to multiply this times this. So I have 2.5 times 30 plus e, and I'm going to add those two together and get that. It works like that every time. So I have 2e plus, and I'll go ahead and do that out. So I have 2.5 times 30, which is 75, plus 2.5e is equal to $178.50. When I combine these two together, it's going to give me 4.5e plus 75 equals 178.50. I'm going to subtract 75 or add a negative 75 to both sides. So I have 4.5e is equal to 103.50. So I'm going to divide by 4.5. So I have 103.50 divided by 4.5, and it's going to give me, I sell 23 cups of espresso. So this would be espresso. And then I'd have to add 30 to it to get the cups of cappuccino. So cappuccino would be 53. Okay. All right. Now, the review homework is page 184, or 180 through 184, 12 through 54